All right, well, today we have my Drift F80 M3 in the shop. We've got a ton of upgrades to do to this thing, and we don't have a lot of time to do them because we leave for Drift Week in 2.5 days. 2.5, 3 days. We don't have a lot of time, and we do have a lot of upgrades planned. So this is my simple seat time drift car, and we basically put this car together originally for last Drift Week 7. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what Drift Week is, if you know what Drag Week is, it's the drift version of that. If you don't know what Drag Week is, then basically we're going to go to our first track, we're going to drift, and then we're going to road trip to the next track, drift, road trip to the next track. It's really 2 weeks, so it should be called Drift 2 weeks. But it's road tripping and track driving, which is, it's very demanding on any car. So you really got to have your ducks in a row, and that's what we're trying to do, plus, you know, upgrading and changing some things. So if you haven't seen this car, this project, this is a 2017 BMW M3. We bought it to build as a simple seat time car. Now, what that means, the definition of that is just keeping the stock drivetrain, just doing bolt-ons performance-wise, and focusing on upgrading the suspension, keeping all the creature comforts like AC and heat and power windows, and making a car that's comfortable to drive on the street, works on the track, and should be decently reliable because it's not swapped and modified. As much as it's hard to admit to ourselves, if you're like me and you like building cars, the closer to stock something is, generally the more reliable it is. So we built this car for Drift Week. We had a very limited amount of time to do what we needed to do when the time came. So it's a 2017 base model. We bought it stick shift, pretty stock, lowered on some wheels. We did some interior stuff, just suede wheel. We did a dual caliper handbrake. We've done a shifter since then. We went through all of the suspension. When we pulled the subframe out, we redid all the rear suspension, all new arms, dual diff brace bushing, poly diff bushings, went through everything there, and then replaced all of the front suspension with a Wisefab angle kit. So basically everything we could have done to the suspension has been done. Now under the hood, it's relatively simple. Some performance stuff. We've got some dual intakes, which bring the air filters up here into the grill. Nice cold air intake situation. We've got a Turner Mishimoto intercooler, charge piping, a heat exchanger, an oil cooler, basically just reliability stuff to help keep the temps in check so we can hot lap this thing as much as we want and not have to worry about it overheating. We also have downpipes and a full exhaust. So very, very basic in the performance department. It probably makes somewhere right around 500 wheel, which is plenty. You know, this is a big car, but it absolutely gets down with that power level. So we put it together for Drift Week. We shipped it across the country to Arizona. We did Drift Week. We made it through Drift Week without any major problems. We had some teething issues and still had some bugs that we hadn't worked out. And we've worked a lot of them out since, and I have just been driving it. And it has been the seat time car I wanted it to be. I throw some tires in the back seat, throw toolbox, tools, you know, little stuff in the trunk, drive to the track. Drive to the LZ compound. We did that with the car and How to Blast, and I've just been enjoying it. But that being said, over that time, we've picked up on some things that we should upgrade and improve. And with 2 days left until we need to leave for Drift Week, we're finally starting on them. That's usually how it goes. Somehow we're always on a time crunch. So that being said, we are on a time crunch, so we need to get straight into it. All right, guys, before we get too deep into today's video, I wanted to talk to you about today's video sponsor, Factor. So I've been using Factor for years now, and it has literally been the biggest game changer in my life. I had pretty much given up on the idea of being able to eat healthy until Factor came along, until I found Factor, because the time is always a struggle for me. We're always busy, we're prepping for events, we're working on projects, everything's a time crunch, but especially this time of year, the holiday season. You know, I'm trying to get stuff done and get ahead so that I can take a break for the holidays and spend time with family, but then there's also way more events happening than usual that I'm trying to prepare for. So the time crunch is way more of a time crunch this time of year. There's way less time and way more things to get done. That being said, it makes it pretty impossible to try to do the traditional route of eating healthy, but that's where Factor comes in. You get fresh, never frozen meals delivered right to your door that are ready in 2 minutes flat. 2 minutes. You can go from having no food to food ready to eat, hot and ready, in 2 minutes. Like, it's incredible. It's like the best thing ever because I get to eat real quality food that tastes delicious. You know, that the way they curate the meals and mix and match all of the different ingredients, they do such a good job with it. Everything I've had has tasted delicious, and it's ready super fast. It saves me so much time. It's like all of my favorite things. I get to save time, I get to save money on takeout, and I get to eat better, which makes me feel way better, which makes me more productive because I get more work done because I don't get that slump from eating just junk food that is not good for me. So all in all, for me, it's like it's a win-win-win. I can't say enough good things about it. Everyone I've recommended it to personally has loved it. I've even had people reach out and tell me, you know, hey, I just wanted to let you know, like, I appreciate you talking about Factor and recommending it. Me and my girlfriend tried it and we love it, you know. So that being said, if you're interested in finding out for yourself, trying it out for yourself, go to factor75.com and use code TaylorDrifts50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. It's a great way to try it out, dip your toes in the water, and just see what you think firsthand. You know, don't take it from me. Try it out yourself, see what you think. So that being said, speaking of time crunches, this is a for real time crunch. We have got to get this car done and leave on our trip because, yeah, I'm kind of from the future here. So that being said, a huge shout out to Factor for sponsoring this video and being a regular sponsor of the channel and helping make these trips happen. But it's time to get back to work. Going up.
Going up.
There you go.
Going up.
Going up. They're all loose.
Oh my.
That was tight.
You put me in danger. The fourth one I picked was like the one.
Yeah, no, that was confusing. I was confused. High torque. Like, high torque's a rig. It's like when we're doing.
Going up.
All right, wheels are off. We went ahead and pulled part of the exhaust out and these heat shields so that we can get to the transmission. We're gonna have to drop it down a little bit because we are gonna be swapping out our shifter setup. So some time ago, not too terribly long ago, we installed this chassis mount shifter. Now, a chassis mount shifter is exactly what it sounds like. It bolts to the chassis instead of being on a pedestal on the transmission, and it is solid mounted. Now, this is a really nice piece from MP Parts and Engineering. It's got the nice reverse lockout button. It looks amazing in there. It feels really cool. However, it kind of pushed us over that edge from street car to race car. And we're really trying to straddle that line with this car and keep it as comfortable as possible while still performing well. So anyway, we decided to go back to the stock shifter for now. We've got the stock shifter stuff here. We get to put the stock knob back on, which I'm kind of excited about. It's illuminated, which is just a neat little feature. So since we're gonna be in there, we gotta take apart a lot of the interior center console stuff. We also have this. This is a Wi-Fi antenna. This car, I upgraded it to CarPlay at the very start of Drift Week last time. Like, you use a flash drive as a whole thing. But I don't think I have this antenna, so the connectivity is not great. So this should fix that. While we're in there putting this in to fix that, while you're there, man, they'll get you. We are adding this backup camera multimedia interface deal. Now, you might be surprised to know that even though this is a 2017 M3, it did not come with a backup camera. So, moral of the story is, we've got to do a lot of interior tearing apart to do this, this, and this. So, we're gonna do them all at the same time. So basically, to remove this shifter, it's a pretty simple process. There's 4 bolts going through. The trickiest part is just it takes 2 people, 1 person on the top loosening the bolts and 1 person on the bottom holding the nuts. But once we got those off, Josue taped up the old holes that we drilled and got to work on installing the new shifter, which is the old shifter, the stock shifter. So this is one of those things. It was a tough call to make, but I'm kind of excited to go back. Where's my squeezy tube? There's a squeezy tube. Use the features. Gotta use the features.
You're not packing it in right.
You're supposed to pack the grease like my grandpappy taught me.
I'm gonna do one of these maneuvers. That should be good. See, I'm taking the excess. Settle down.
Settle down.
Settle down.
Relax. stock shifter back in. All right, well, the stock shifter is back in. Boy, does it feel good to have a stock shifter back in this car, even without the shift knob. It just feels so much more like a BMW, so much more like a street car. So I'm pretty excited about that. I can't wait to drive this thing again. Working on those comfortability factors for this long trip. Now, while Josue is working on that, I'm going to work on the performance side of things. So one area we had to sacrifice on this car when we built it originally was the brakes. So factory, these cars come with some massive, massive brakes. That's one of the cool things about them. However, when you put a big angle kit on, like this Wisefab kit we have, and you go down to an 18-inch wheel, most 18-inch wheels do not fit the factory brakes. They're designed to be behind 19s and 20s. So we had to mount the caliper further inboard and run these smaller rotors, which are actually even smaller than they need to be. You can see they don't fill out the caliper. One of those things, more of a temporary setup just to get us through Drift Week, that just hasn't been changed. That is changing. We're gonna change this. We're gonna try to get the full-size factory brake setup back on this car, because for this trip, we are gonna need some braking. To get big giant brakes to fit, the wheels kind of have to be engineered around that. So we're switching to these Enkei GTC 01RRs. I'm pretty excited about this. This is Enkei's racing line of wheels. This is kind of some of their newer wheel options that, again, are designed around cars like this. You can see the front's pretty flat face. The rear is super concaved. We have to run a very small, very high offset wheel in the front to not poke these things 4 miles out. So that's why the front has less concave than the rear. But these are slick. I've always been a fan of Enkei wheels. They're made in Japan. They make a really solid, durable, lightweight wheel with original wheel designs at a very affordable price compared to a lot of the other stuff you get. So we went through Fitment Industries to get these. I've been really impressed with them when it comes to getting wheels, because whether I'm just ordering online, trying to find the right wheel for the right car and be able to narrow down my options on their website, it's very, very user-friendly in that aspect. Or just talking to their team about questions I have. Do you think these wheels will fit? You know, are these set up for this? And so on and so forth. They've just been great to deal with all in all. Huge shout out to Fitment Industries. They've been a huge help in making this happen. They helped us get the T37 squared away for the daily M3. And now our Enkei GTC 01RRs for this car. I think this thing's gonna look sick. Now, not only are these going to allow us to run the full-size brakes in the front, but we're gonna be adding in tire pressure sensors. These are the same ones that we got through Fitment last time for the other car, and they integrated perfectly. All I had to do was a reset, and we had tire pressure and tire temp. So again, bringing back some of the streetability of this car. Part of the fun of having a newer BMW as the daily drifter is to use those features. Me and Josue talk about it all the time. Use the features.
Use the features.
So we want to use the features of tire pressure sensors. So we also have sticky tires to go on. So we've been running the Nitto NT01 in the front. This is like my favorite tire ever made. It's sticky, it's grippy, it lasts well, but it's very, very durable. Holds up to pretty much anything I've ever been able to throw at one. So we've always run these on the front, but we normally cycle drift tires on the rear. So grippy front tire, not so grippy rear tire. But since these are gonna be purely for driving to and from the track and the road trips and things like that, we are going to be putting a set of NT01s on the back as well. So we have a 275/35 to go on the back. So we're going to have sticky tires front and rear. Now you might think, why would you care? Why does it matter? This is a drift car and you're going drifting. Well, this Drift Week, not only are we going to be road tripping and drifting and doing all those things, but we are going to be doing a fair bit of grip driving, which I'm very excited about because we've been doing a lot of grip driving in the other car, but this car is very different. You know, it's got an angle kit, it's a stick shift. It's going to be a big change of pace, but we're going to have sticky tires all the way around. I think it should do pretty well. I think it should be pretty fun to drive. So I'm really excited about this. Solid daily wheel setup using the features. So a whole lot of jibber jabber to say. This wheel should fit and clear with our brakes, but our caliper mount is not quite right. We've done some measuring, checking on the other car. This puts the caliper a little bit too far out, which we need all the clearance we can get. So we're going to slot these holes just a little bit to try to bring the caliper in to where it would be stock, so that way our wheels fit. So I started working on getting these brackets modified so that we can try to get these calipers to suck in a little bit further and get these dang wheels to fit. Now, an 18 with this big of a brake kit is a tall order in general, but especially if you've got any clearance going to waste. So we're basically going to slot these and try to slide them in closer to the hub and see if we can get them kind of closer to where the stock location is. Now, when we first built the car, I did try these out on there and I noticed that they were a little far off, but I was hopeful that they weren't so far off that we couldn't make this work. Also, check out that Garage Built t-shirt if you're interested in the Fummins giveaway. November the 13th is the last day to get 2 times double entries. So if you're interested, check it out. We've done the pre-order. We've got a bunch of stuff coming. Once that sells out, all of the stuff that we have ordered, we're going to have to mark stuff as sold out because we don't want people waiting forever for their stuff. So if you miss out on that, if you want anything specific, now is kind of the time to do it. And then also getting the double entries. So just quick little Fummins giveaway shout out. So while I was struggling trying to get these brake caliper brackets to work and give us clearance so that we could actually run the full size rotors, Josue was working on tearing apart all of the trim pieces of the car so that we could route the cable for the backup camera. It still blows my mind that this car, being as new as it is and an M3, did not come with a backup camera, but we're trying to add one. It's the little things. These little small features on these newer cars are what make them so nice and enjoyable to use and drive. So we're trying to make as many of them work as we can, and having a backup camera is always nifty. One, I drive this car on the street a lot. I like to daily this honestly more than any other car. But two, in the pits, things get a little hectic. People are walking around not paying attention. So being able to see and make sure no one's behind you before you're backing out of a pit spot would probably be pretty handy. But again, it is kind of a lot of work. All right, well, we're gonna have to abort mission on this. I have hogged out this bracket as much as really more than I'm comfortable with. We don't have a lot of meat left there, and there's still not enough clearance. We could grind on the caliper some, but I think we can make this work without grinding on the caliper because we test fitted this wheel on the front of the white car and it had clearance. So if we can get the caliper to the stock location, we should be good. But I just don't think I can modify this bracket enough to get it to the stock location. So we'll either have to make our own bracket, we'll have to come up with another plan, a plan that we do not have time for. Because also we have to steal the brakes off the white car. So basically, originally I got track pads for this car, I got street pads for the white car, and I took that car to the track and absolutely glazed the pads over completely. So when I was about to head out for a dragon trip, I stole the track pads that I had on this car, put them on that car, and put the glaze pads on this car. Definitely the benefit of having 2 of the same cars, you can scavenge parts in a pinch, which is what we did before the dragon trip and what we're doing before this trip. Just flip-flop. Josue, how's it going for you? Progress report. This is like my least favorite thing to do, so I'm really glad you're doing it.
Trim's going back on.
Oh, wow.
Camera's on.
Camera's in?
We'll see.
We might actually get this done. We might be able to watch movies.
That's the plan.
We can get this done. I have faith.
No,
I'll get these brakes done. And
this trim is the worst, but we're getting there. I think we're over the hump.
So while Josue continued the very fun job of taking apart and putting back together interior panels, I went to work on swapping the brakes. It's always painful to swap good parts from one car and then bad parts back on another car, but I slacked on ordering new pads for the white car, so we're just going to toss these old pads back in it for now to get us by, and then we'll put the good pads in the black car. It is kind of funny that they were originally for the Drift F80, then they went to the Street F80, now they're going back on the Drift F80. I guess you could say where they belong. I wish we would have been able to get the full-size rotors on this thing, but for now this will do. Some good Hawk track pads will make a big difference in doing some grip driving with this thing later on. Alright, brakes are back on. Definitely unfortunate. Regardless, it's time to put the wheels on. We gotta put the valve stems in. Another day, another mounting. Nice wheels I never thought I'd own, and trying not to scratch them. So one of the neat things about these wheels is they are a dual valve hole wheel. So we have these leftover valve stems, these anodized red aluminum valve stems from the TE37s that I wasn't able to use on those because they only have one valve hole, and I needed to use the TPMS sensors, where on these wheels we can use the cool anodized aluminum one for letting air in and out and still be able to install our TPMS sensors. Now, what's neat about these TPMS sensors is if we code the car right and do the things we need to do to add this feature in, we should be able to read tire temp as well as tire pressure, which Not super useful for what we're doing with this car, but it'll be cool to have. It's a cool little feature to have on a stock car integrated into the stock system. So while I'm working on mounting up the wheels and tires, getting that all done so we can toss them on the car and see how they look, Josue is hard at work tearing apart more of the interior to get in here and install this box. This backup camera install is a pretty intrusive process. You know, it's plug and play, but we like to use that with air quotes because nothing is ever really plug and play. Everything requires some sort of modification or change or cutting or splicing, and this is no different. All right, we got all of our tires mounted up. Man, that is a snazzy combo. Like, these wheels look really good by themselves just as a bare wheel, but when you put these meaty NT01s on them, like, that is a track spec setup if I have ever seen one. This thing is gonna look so good on these wheels. I'm so excited about this. Today's finally the day. Sticky tires all around, so this is gonna be a neat combo to put on what's technically a drift car. So anyway, we're gonna get these tossed on before we start working on some of the other stuff. Josue is pretty well finished up with our backup camera install, as far as we know.
I believe so.
You see this all put back together? There's a lot of stuff going on in here. So do we know what we need to do? Do we need to use that remote or something?
No.
No? All right, let me get the key. We need the thumb wheel.
My fault.
But the screen came on. So before we could put the wheels on, there was another job that I almost forgot about, but has needed doing for a while. This lower spherical bearing, it's basically in the position of a lower ball joint, had gotten torn up on the first drift week. And it wasn't the kit's fault, it was my fault. I didn't nut and bolt check it as often as I should have, and one of the bolts backed out and was very, very loose, and it tore up the spherical bearing. And I've honestly been driving it longer than I'd like to admit like that, but it's time to fix it before this trip. So before we can drop the car down and see how it looks on these wheels, we've got a few more things to knock off the checklist while it's up in the air and on the lift. One of those things being an oil change. I try to do it pretty frequently on both F80s, but especially this car. This car sees a lot of sustained high RPM, and it's one of those things. It's cheap insurance to change your oil often. I try to go with a decent oil that's reasonably affordable, so I don't feel bad changing it every couple of events. And Drift Week is a lot of events and a lot of street driving. Really, we should be changing it halfway. The least we can do for this thing is change it before the trip. So with that done, we need to get the exhaust back on, get the bottom stuff tidied up, and then it's time we can finally drop this thing down and see what it looks like on these wheels. All right, well, the wheels look absolutely incredible on here. However, I made a miscalculation. My old wheels, I thought were 25 offset. These are 23 offset. So I thought we were good. They're not. They're 33 offset. I just remembered incorrectly. These are 23 offset. So they are more aggressive and they poke. Wouldn't probably still be a problem. Wouldn't be a huge problem if this wasn't a drift car. We could put a little camber in it. With like 2 degrees of camber, it would probably be fine. And I want the sticky boys. Should we put some camber in it first?
Let's do a smidge of camber.
Yeah, all right. All right, we added a little bit of camber, not too much. I think it'll be manageable, or we'll pull it out when we get there. But it looks like we're in good shape now. It really wasn't that much. It's a little under 2 degrees, 1.5 degrees, 3.8. But man, it looks killer with the NT01s all around on these Enkis. Holy! Now we still got to see if the front's going to clear or run into everything. If we need to switch the tires on that. But we're going to take it for a little test real quick make sure everything is cohesive, and then start loading it up. We got to get the pod back on the roof, get the bike racks off. We got a bit to do. I don't want to talk about it. We don't have a backup camera still. We'll have to figure that out.
Might be in the, I'll have to check, but everything else is working so far.
Yep. Just enough to slow the car down. One good thing, not one good thing, shifter feels way better. CarPlay is connecting every time now. Like when I got in, started up, before I could even mess with it, it was connected.
Did it? Nice. Yeah. Alright. Sick.
So that's, at a minimum, that's great. Hopefully we can figure out the backup camera. I think maybe we got to turn that box on or something.
Maybe.
There was a remote that came with it.
Oh, we didn't try the remote. Maybe?
Maybe.
But
we'll mess with that.
To be continued.
All right, well, we are fully loaded up in the car with the exception of a couple of bags, just like our backpacks, my camera gear, things like that. So we're gonna test drive it and see, see if and how bad it rubs. If it does rub bad, we can switch to the bronze wheels, which are a little more aggressive for the drive there. Once we get to the start of Drift Week, we won't have these four wheels and we won't have the spare front, which we're going to strap on the roof boxes. We couldn't fit it anywhere else. But once we get there, we won't have that. So we'll have way more room, way less weight in the car. These will be fine. Just right now, there's a lot of weight. 4 wheels, jack, axles, tools, 1 wheels, a lot of stuff in here. So we'll go test drive it, see how it is. It seems fine now, like yeah, it might get worse, but like we can cross that bridge when we get to it. That's some good bumps coming. No problem though. No problem.
Boom.
We're good.
Test drive complete. Oh, we gotta review the footage. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's the slightest.
Yeah, but that's
no, yeah.
That'll destroy
that's not
tires.
It's just touching it.
Well, I guess let's switch them now. right, car is loaded in the trailer. It's strapped down. It's crazy that there's more room with this thing in here than the vet. We could definitely have taken this thing up there in the open trailer, but we haven't got a chance to use this thing yet because I bought it right before the off season. Smart things that I do. So we might as well use it, keep the car protected since we're going to be stopping in the middle of the night. So the plan is we're going to tow the car up to the end track, the final track, and we're going to basically drop the truck and trailer there, leave it, and then continue to drive. It's perfectly almost halfway too, which is convenient. So get up there halfway, drop the truck and trailer, unload the car, continue on to the start, and then ideally, you know, if we make it to the end, we'll have the truck and trailer to tow the car home, so minimize driving time, and then that way if anything does happen, we have the truck and trailer kind of halfway between home and where we're gonna be, so it's not such an ordeal, right? So that's the idea. That is the idea. So we're doing a little bit of both. We're driving the car up to the start, but just not all the way. Man, it looks good in here. Oh, it feels good. All right, I'm gonna quit jibber jabber. We're gonna get this thing closed up, get ready to hit the road. We are running a little behind schedule.